So it was clear to me and to them that this was a very serious issue. I did try to go through the estate agents. I gave them all of the incidences, gave them all the videos, voice recordings, and they just said, keep documenting it. But I said to them, to what end? To what end? Does he have to...
till he batters you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Till he puts a knife in you. Till he puts
so.
a knife in your... Hi everyone, welcome back to DMC TV. As you can see here today, I've got my good friend Courtney, who I'll be introducing in a minute. I'm going to be talking about, well, Courtney's going to be talking about house shares and an experience he had, a pretty bad experience. So uni students go to uni for their first year when they're 18. Other people have house shares, you know, at all stages of their life. A lot of the time things are fine, you know, things are cushy, there's no issues. Other times you can get bad people and you're just unlucky. There's a lot of risks associated with house shares. People moving to London, rents are extortionate, for example, Manchester, other big cities. People have to do it. It's all they can rely on. This video is going to talk about Courtney's experience, what he did in this experience with this bad housemate, and what he would advise others to do. And yeah, I'm just going to let Courtney, throw it over to Courtney to introduce himself.
Hi guys, yes, my name's Courtney, and just to say I am Daniel's best friend, just to put that out there. Yeah, so I mean, I'm on here today to talk about my experience with, I suppose, my housemate from hell. I feel like when you do have a house share with mates you actually know, or know relatively well, it could be like a family occasion. It could be like, you know, it could be a really good time together. But this particular experience, I moved in a house share with people I didn't know. So this was a completely different experience for me. So I'll start off by saying why I moved into a house share in the first place. I moved from London, where I was born and raised, and I moved to Manchester to start my own business. And one of the reasons why I moved into a house share was because, one, it was particularly affordable, because I had other expenses of my actual business. And two, because I actually thought it was an opportunity to make new friends. I was moving to Manchester by myself. I didn't know anyone, and in a city that I'd only seen or visited once in my life. So it was quite a nerve-wracking occasion. So I thought a house share would be good, very like-minded working professionals, where I could blossom a friendship potentially. So that was one of the reasons why I moved. Now, sort of the dream versus reality became sort of bumped heads in that scenario, because I thought I'd move into a nice house share with 3 or 4 housemates, and we'd get on like a house on fire. So I think I moved into the house share in August 2019, and for between August and November, there was no one else in the house apart from me and Neil. But I'll fast forward to the day when I met this housemate from hell. So his name was Nathan, and the month was November 2019, and I just come back from work, and I saw a light on in the in one of the vacant rooms, and I thought, right, this is my chance. This is my chance to make new friends. There's someone in the house, and let me go and introduce myself. And I did feel a bit, of course, a bit nervous, but this was an opportunity that I wanted to take. So I went up to his room, and I knocked on his door, and I introduced myself. We exchanged pleasantries. Now Nathan, he was about 40 years old. He was about 5'6", average build. But he seemed really nice. He came across really well. And after exchanging pleasantries, I showed him around the house. I showed him how to work the boiler, the radiator, the shower, and that sort of kicked off a 2 to 3 hour long conversation. And it was actually really nice. It was that kind of conversation where I left it thinking, this is actually a really nice guy. It's someone I could actually see a potential friendship with. I was 25 at the time, and he was about 40, so there was obviously an age gap. But you know, I wasn't looking for any particular friends. He just seemed like a really nice person. So those were my first thoughts of Nathan in particular. And between the months of November to December, that first month was great. I'd come home from work and I'd bump into him in the kitchen and we talk. We'd even go deeper than your sort of service level topic conversation. I'd say after November 2019, that's when the tension started to arise. That's when you saw the kind of true nature of the person that he was. And there was several incidences ranging from sort of that November, December time, 2019, all the way up to November 2020. So that whole year, pandemic included, was really, really tough.
What sort of things? Was there one incident or were there a few incidents? What caused the issues and the tension between the pair of you?
Yeah, so I mean, there was many incidences. I actually created a report which documented about 20 separate incidences.
20?
Some were more volatile, and some were more aggressive, or let's say verbally abusive than others. But each incident in itself carried a level of fear, a level of anxiety, and those kind of sort of bad feelings from just being in the same house as him. So to give you an example, the first ever tension that I experienced of him and with him was from the 2nd of November. So he'd been in the house for a month now, and I was outside of my room. I just came back from work, and I bumped into Nathan where he, we started talking, but he basically passively aggressively told me that I had to take better control of my life. I felt very patronized, and I felt it was quite condescending towards me. And it was a very cryptic conversation, but he never outright came out with anything. That's just what I took.
He didn't give an example of what he was referring to.
The only thing I could take from what he could be referring to was it was the weekend before, because I believe that was beginning of the week. The weekend before, I had a friend over, and we were sort of pre-drinking, but it wasn't too noisy. I did ask him that day if he wanted to come down to my room, meet my friend, and we can hang out and maybe even go out, but he said no. I did say to him if there was any more noise in my room to let me know, but he never did. So that's the only thing I could actually put it down to. Obviously, when you live in a shared house, walls can be quite hollow, and you can hear people from time to time. And I feel like I'm a very reasonable person, and I would definitely take his thoughts into account if I was being too noisy. But he never made that a situation for me. So yeah, that particular incident was one of many going forward. And again, I mean, I've got several down the line. I could fast forward to the 24th of November, where I came back from work. I came back from the gym about 10 p.m. in the evening, and I had my headphones in, so I couldn't really hear the environment around me. But I closed my door behind me, but I also had my window open, and I believe the breeze from my window pulled my door to quite aggressively, and it made a massive bang. So I took my headphones out after I closed the door, and all I could hear was Nathan screaming my name, Courtney, Courtney, Courtney. And I come out my room going, Nathan, you okay? What's wrong? And he said, why do you keep making noise? Like, just shut. And I was stunned. I had no idea where he was coming from, or why that was the case. I said, Nathan, what's the problem? Tell me what the problem is, and I will try and help in the future to not make that. And I did apologize to him, but he seemed very reluctant to take my apology. He went into his room and he slammed the door. Again, I did feel quite fearful because of the way he approached me. This was kind of on the surface kind of fear, so it was nothing I felt like I couldn't handle, because he wasn't aggressive. He hadn't been aggressive at that point. He was obviously a bit verbally abusive, um, but I felt like it was nothing I couldn't handle. That was probably the point where I thought, okay, if he does something else next time, I'm going to be very, very fearful of him. Or if I do anything, I feel like I was walking on eggshells a bit, being in my own house.
Yeah, which is no way to live, is it?
No, absolutely not. And the sort of the main altercation happened in December, the sort of the 10th of December. Um, and that was when I started documenting each and every incident in like this incident report. Now, this particular occasion came in the kitchen, and it was early in the morning. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd just woken up, trying to get ready for work. I had to leave in about an hour. Started about 9:30, and as I was getting changed in my room and I had my TV on, Nathan walked past my door to get to the kitchen because that was the route, and he just shouted, "You arrogant OCB narcissist!" And I kind of stopped what I was doing, and I thought, "Oh, is it? What just happened there? Is he on the phone? Is he talking to someone else? Is he talking about me?" So I had to go to the kitchen myself anyway because I wanted to make myself a cup of coffee. And I went into the kitchen and I said, "Nathan, are you okay?" And he turned around to me and he gave me this really like intense stare. And that intense stare was, for me, that was probably the most frightening because you could say one thing, but I feel like it's a look that people give sometimes that makes you know how they feel. You know how they say, sort of pictures are worth 1,000 words kind of thing.
Yeah.
That kind of summed it up. And he looked into my eyes from across the kitchen, and it was like he wanted to murder me.
I was going to say, did you feel like he was going to throw a punch at you or something?
Yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely. So I kind of kept my distance towards the door as an exit point. And he basically followed with an extremely loud pitched rant towards me. And basically, it felt like, how you can overboil a kettle. You put too much water in it and it goes everywhere. It felt like that, where he kept stuff in for so long. I don't know what it could be. It could be I might have left something out, or I might have put something back where it should have been, or just these little things, I suppose, in house shares that might get on people's nerves or it might not, but that other person doesn't know until you say something.
Sure.
And I guess it built up in him until it got to that point where he couldn't take it no more.
But did he tell you what you'd done on this occasion?
Well, yeah, indeed. The rant involved things like not taking the rubbish out or not taking the bins out, even though I'd be working 6 days a week. The only day I'd get off was Sunday because I was running my business and I had a part-time job at the same time to make ends meet. And he was unemployed for the first 3 months that he moved in. So for me, it was I only thought, well, you're there for 3 months every day. You could take out the bins. But that's something that he could have talked to me about. He said, he could have said, could you please take out the bins more? Like civilized adults,
Did you have, as a house, like set jobs or not really?
No, not at all. Not at all. Everyone kept themselves to themselves. And that was, like I said, that was reality versus a dream, like the dream of having people in a house share where we could all come together as one and say, okay, we will watch shared jobs, or we could all come together and go out one evening or have a meal together. That was versus the reality of everyone stay in their room and look after yourself. That's, and some people like living like that, and I don't blame them. And some people can be very chatty and talkative and want to make friends like myself, and I think that's okay too.
I'd say not having set jobs in a sort of house shares recipe for disaster. And like, I know you, so I know that he would have. I know that if anyone said something to you, you're quite reasonable. You're like, yeah, sure. So I know everything he's done, so I'm not defending the bloke, but I can understand from that perspective, even if he was like jobless, why he would be annoyed at like, okay, why aren't we splitting these out? But to like have a go at you without actually saying something beforehand, not like reasonable either, is it?
No, absolutely not. And he said some really hurtful things that time. He called me. He said I was selfish. He said I was entitled. He called me this or that. It was just really hurtful words. And the thing is, it came at such a random time to me, because I mean, I maybe the noise was one thing from that incident I mentioned before, but it wasn't a chain of incidences for me anyway that could have caused him to become like that. You know, that conversation went on for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I was fearful, but I felt like I wanted to stand my ground because I felt like I'd done nothing wrong.
Did you say that chat went on for nearly 2 hours?
Yes.
And I'm just trying to envision that. Were you both shouting at each other? Was it calm? What was it?
So I went into the conversation calm because I was obviously curious why he shouted, "You OCD narcissist," by my door. It started off calm from me, and he was quite angry, and then he just got angrier and angrier, and I got a bit angrier and a bit angrier, and you know, I said, "Look, you're saying stuff about me. Well, why don't I say a few home truths about you? I think you need to talk more. I think if you have anything to say, you should actually say it like a civilized adult, instead of throwing your toys out the pram. And if there's anything you think I've moved around, then let me know. We can come to some sort of agreement. Like, you've just walked in here in a shared house and expect everything to be done your way. Well, it doesn't work like that. People live differently, and you know, we should be able to work together to, one, keep the house clean, and two, live in a cohesive manner.
Sure.
And I don't know why you have to blow up. This doesn't solve anything. This doesn't help you. This doesn't help me. You know, and yeah, it was one of those conversations and arguments where I looked into his eyes and I thought, you are definitely not the person I met, and I can tell that there's some things in your life you might need to sort out.
And he's putting them on you. He's putting them on you.
Putting them on me.
Yeah.
So it was. I went to work later that day, and I was in bits. I had a little cry. I think that was the day I told you about all this as well.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. After that, I would go home and I wouldn't want to see him, and I'd just keep myself to myself. And that whole idea of a house share to me went straight out the window.
Well, this is the thing. You've got like people watching, all 50 or 60 of my viewers probably have to appreciate, is when you have an argument with someone on the street, for example, some nonsense, you can have the argument, you both go your separate ways, it's done. You were living with this person, you had to go back to that house every single day and live. Every time you wanted the bathroom or go into the kitchen or something, you're like, tiny bit in your head, it's like, am I going to see him? Is there going to be an altercation? And that's no way to live. Because obviously I know you don't live there with him anymore. So I can only imagine the difference in like your psyche from that. What I was going to ask at this point was, I don't believe he was ever physical towards you, but he was physical. What's the word? He would start throwing stuff around the house, for example. There's one video you sent me in particular. Are you okay to talk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd just say before that, so the initial heated altercation I was talking about previously was in December. If we roll on to January 2020, just kind of before the pandemic, there were a few phrases he'd utter in the kitchen towards me, saying how he doesn't care about anyone in this house, where he was just in the kitchen by himself, but I'd be walking past the kitchen, so I'd hear that specifically. where he'd be talking to himself, which kind of alluded a bit of derangement to me anyway. In the
it's pathetic, isn't it?
as well, yeah. And then move on to sort of March and July 2020, where the lockdown happened. When I heard about a lockdown, I thought, I'm not living here. I cannot live here. So I packed up and I moved. I moved back to London. I stayed with my grandparents, and it was so nice. It was just so nice to relax and be with people who I actually loved and adored, and not having to look over my shoulder or stay in my room or wait till I might want to go to the toilet because I think he might be nearby. It's just all these anxieties. Anyway, coming back out of lockdown and moving back into the property, I bumped into him. This was the 4th of July. I bumped into him, and he was like, "Oh, you're back here, are you? Oh, great." And I was like, I kind of just brushed that off. But this specific incident that you're talking about, Danny, was that was sort of the pinnacle for me. And to just give you a bit of background towards that, come from the September 17th of 2020, we had another housemate move in. And there was a young girl called Ruth, and she was about early 20s, very lovely girl, very innocent, quite shy, and she just moved from France just so she could make a living for herself in the UK, and she was lovely. She was really, really nice. Now she lived right next door to Nathan, and like I said, walls are hollow.
Lucky her, yeah.
So you can imagine the kind of problems that incurred from that. Now, leading up to this particular incident, which I'll touch on in a bit, Ruth sort of pulled me over literally 2 weeks into her living there in September, and she sort of just I didn't know the girl from Adam, but she blurted out everything that's happened in those 2 weeks with Nathan while she's lived next door to him. She said how she'd be on the phone to her friends, and Nathan would just be shouting, "Just shut!" And she'd hear that he'd call her the devil. He'd call out her name and call her Satan, like Ruth the Satan. He'd call her loads of names, like just names under the sun. And I thought, right, he's done this to me. He's being more verbally abusive towards a young innocent girl who frankly is extremely scared of this person. Something has to be done about this. So I called the estate agents, and they weren't particularly helpful in this scenario. They just said write down everything. But that was the 18th of September in the morning. Now, this particular incident, the part where he throws stuff, was the 18th of September, and it was in the evening, where it was a Friday night. I was actually out at a friend's house, and Ruth called me. She's never called me before. It was about 8 o'clock in the evening. And I looked at my phone, I answered, and I said, "What's wrong with you? Okay?" And she just started crying. She was crying down the phone. I said, "What's the problem?" And she said, "Well, Nathan's just thrown all your food out of the fridge, and he's hit me with some yogurt. There's loads of yogurt around around the house. It's in the hallway. It's outside your bedroom door. It's on the front door. It's down the stairs. There's loads of all your food that you cooked. All these frozen packets and stuff all over the floor." And I thought, what has happened? Why is he's? But it seemed to me it was about time, because you could see the anger in him, and there was only a matter of time for him to break chain and absolutely explode. So I got home. My friend drove me home, and I found all of this mess on the floor. Like I said, yogurt, frozen vegetables, pasta, chicken, all of this stuff that I'd cooked for myself, which was just a waste of money. All of my containers broken, and it only seemed to be my stuff in the fridge. It wasn't anyone else's. It wasn't Ruth's. It wasn't. It was a bit of Ruth's, but it wasn't obviously Nathan's. It wasn't Neil's, who already lived there. So I was like, right, okay, I need to speak to him. What I did, I got a separate phone, put on a voice recorder, went up to his room, knocked on his door, and I said, Nathan, what's wrong? Please, can you talk to me, because this has gone far enough. Obviously, I was shaking. I didn't know what he would
I can
do.
imagine you were to come home and see all your food on the floor. Like, I think he stamped on it. I think you said from memory and stuff like that. Like, I can only imagine how you felt. So yeah, you were obviously a bit shaken up.
Absolutely. And so I knocked on his door and I said, Nathan, please tell me what's wrong. We need to talk about this. Ruth was, I'd say, a few meters behind me. She was trying to listen in. But that voice recorder I had right to the door just in case he said anything. Excuse me. And all he said was, leave my front door. Go away from my front door. I just kept saying to him, Nathan, if you don't come out and talk about this, I will be seeking alternative routes to try and solve this, because this is getting ridiculous. Me and Ruth decided to clean up all of that mess. And that's when I decided to take action from then. From then, I decided to take action. From the 19th of September, I decided to make a formal complaint and open up a criminal case. So I went through a few different avenues. My first port of call was the Citizens Advice Bureau. And I had a long conversation with them, and they discussed my avenues. They said you could go through the property redress scheme, but that's before you talk to your estate agent. Now, I spoke to my estate agent throughout that whole year. I called every single estate agent and I told them the situation. And they even cancelled Ruth's contract. They ended her contract early because she wanted to get out. After that situation, she'd only been there for 3 or 4 months, and she left within a tenancy which should have been a year. And you don't usually do that other than extenuating circumstances like this one. So it was clear to me and to them that this was a very serious issue. I did try to go through the estate agents. I gave them all of the incidences, gave them all the videos, voice recordings, and they just said, keep documenting it. But I said to them, to what end? To what end? Does he
till he batters you. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, till he puts a knife in you. Till he puts a knife in you. This is
absolutely.
This is why, if estate agents, it's just cliche. If they're not getting any money from it, they're not interested.
I threatened with not paying, and they said, "Well, you can't do that." And that's when they started moving their finger when I threatened them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went through them. I went through the property redress scheme. I went through the property ombudsman. They said there's nothing they can really do. I then went through the police, and the police said that there was nothing they could really do. But then they moved me on to the neighbourhood police watch, and they advised, look, there's nothing we can really do. Just keep documenting what you can do. What we can offer you are therapy sessions. I also emailed the local MP, Afzal Khan from Manchester Gorton, and he never got back to me. But by that time, I was out of options, and I just kept threatening the estate agents with blanks, basically, because I had no other option. So that was pretty much it.
So you did get him evicted eventually, didn't you?
I did.
You were told you'd have to live with him for 6 months till he got evicted. Is that right?
That is correct, yes. So
you had to live. Sorry, Court. So you had to live in a house for 6 months, up to 6 months, with someone who knows they're going to be evicted, and he obviously knew you were the reason for him getting evicted. How did that feel?
Oh, it was horrible. Again, every day, because when I found out he knew, every day I'd play a voice record, put on a voice recording before I got into the house. So just in case anything happened to me. And that's not a way to live. But I knew that I'm glad the eviction came, but they only gave it 6 months because of the pandemic, where there was a law where you couldn't move into another house for another 6 months if you're being evicted because of the pandemic. So it really put pressure on me, and I'm glad it came through, but it was just too little too late. And I was lucky myself because one of my dear friends, he decided he wanted to move up to Manchester, so we just got a 2-bed flat. But before that, so I found a way out. But that was, without that, I probably would have still been there, and who knows what would have happened.
I remember saying to you at the time, just get out. This is before I knew you were moving in with your new housemate. I was like, Court, just come home to Enfield, like, just get out of there. And I still, yeah, those words weren't listened to, but because you got lucky, someone else might not get lucky. You hear of these tragic. It only takes someone like him to lose it once, and it could be game over. So, I guess from that, what advice would you give to anyone who is going through this right now, knows someone going through it right now, especially the young woman you've described? What advice would you give to people living with living with weirdos, basically? What would in fear for their safety?
Yeah, I can only answer that question based on what I would do in the future, knowing what I've done in the past. And I would definitely go through an estate agent first and foremost to maybe try and find you housemates and I do know there's a specific estate agent where you can fill out an application based on what kind of person you are, and they will move you in with other people based on who you are, so you can actually try and form friendships. So there's one, I think they're called Zest, I think. I'm not too sure on that, don't quote me on that. But there's other resources. You can always move in with people you know, friends per se, or move in with at least one person you know. If you can't do that, if you really can't do that, I would then go to Citizens Advice and make sure you know your rights as a tenant, and make sure you have a reputable estate agent, and also the actual landlord. Make sure you could actually try and get in touch with the landlord, because my landlord, I could never get in touch with him. I didn't want to talk to the estate agent, so I wanted to go through the landlord, because the landlord had the power to evict that actual person, but he was never around and he didn't want to know. All he did was want my money. So I would definitely advise the person. I kind of went into their blind because I had no business to run, but for other people moving into a shared house, I would advise them to take their time with it. It is affordable, but please take your time and work around those scenarios and really get some support behind you if this ever happens, because I do feel tenants need more support in this scenario.
Yeah, and I'd say if anyone is going through this right now, just get out. It doesn't matter if you're in a different city. It doesn't matter if you're going to lose your job. Your life's more important than a job or a few £100 rent each month. Just leave. It's just not worth it. That's my advice.
If you listen to the end, I hope you found that interesting. Many thanks for listening. Bye.